I have the distinct honor of introducing tonight's keynote speaker. Muhammad Faridi is an arbitration and investigations partner at Linklaters LLP based in New York. For those of you who are not familiar with the legal profession, Linklaters is as big as it gets in New York and in the US in terms of law firms. It's a very, very prestigious law firm. My firm, I work for a bank. We are a client of Linklaters as well and do a lot of work with them. More impressively, Muhammad is the 71st president of the New York City Bar Association, one of the most powerful and prestigious bar associations in the US. And let me say the following. He's the youngest person to serve in that role, and he's the first Muslim American to serve in that role. Now, I'm not, and to be clear, I'm not talking about the New York Muslim Bar Association. I'm talking about the New York Bar Association. So it is an incredible feat that we have a tremendous young individual who has reached that position of prestige in terms of the legal profession in New York. As president of the Bar Association, Muhammad has established a presidential task force on digital technologies and artificial intelligence, bringing together over 150 members from law, academia, business, and government. And much like what we have discussed, is a convener and a thinker of innovation in the field of law. He has tried several high-stake cases, and other than winning multi-billion-dollar settlements for his clients, I think the one thing that really stood out for me as I went through his background was that he won a landmark $42 million jury verdict in a pro bono case for Iraqi nationals who were tortured at the notorious Abu Ghraib prison during the Iraq War. Thank you for your leadership. Muhammad has also served on the New York Mayor's Advisory Committee on the Judiciary, entrusted to ensure that only candidates with the highest qualifications and from diverse backgrounds are nominated for judicial appointments to criminal and family courts, as well as interim appointments to civil courts. And we have seen what happens when a judiciary is doing things in a way that are tilted towards protecting civil rights, and when a certain situation exists where communities like ours struggle to see the common sense in some of the decisions that are made about those like us who, as the ambassador kindly pointed out, call this our homeland now, but are from the motherland. So just a quick background on Muhammad. He taught commercial litigation as an adjunct professor of Fordham University of Law for 5 years, and he's also written extensively on commercial litigation. And he also clerked earlier with Judge Jack Weinstein, senior U.S. District Judge for the Eastern District of New York. He has a JD from the City University of New York School of Law, which I actually just connected, realized is right in my neighborhood. And he also has a bachelor's in government from the John Jay College. He is one of the brightest and best minds in law in New York, in the U.S., and we're very proud to have him as a member of our community. So I'm delighted. Please join me in welcoming Muhammad Faridi to the podium.
I look a lot younger in that picture than I do today. So I can probably take that down. So let me begin by first thanking the American Pakistani Foundation and its leadership for building such an essential platform for our community. This organization is more than just a network. It's a vision for how diaspora communities, our diaspora community, can engage, how it can lead, and how it can give back. And the leadership here, the work that you have done, the space that you have created for young people to grow, for professionals to connect, and for the community to have a voice on the national stage. It's something for which we are all indebted to you. And what's a gathering among compatriots? if we can't have an honest conversation about a place that we all love, our motherland. And I hope to do that tonight. I hope to do that in a manner that's candid. And I hope that I'm able to do that in a manner that's constructive as well. Because if we can't speak frankly about our motherland with one another, who can we speak with? Okay. So Kashif Bhai asked me to say a few words about my upbringing. What he read to you before was just a pamphlet put out by the marketing department of my law firm. Let me tell you a little bit more about myself. My father left Gujranwala for America in the 1980s when I was a few years old. He left in 1985 when I was 3 years old. So we were raised by my mother and my mamus in Sialkot until my father was able to get his green card in this country and bring me and my siblings and my mother over to the US when we were teenagers in the 1990s. And, we knew that our father drove a livery cab here in New York, like many Pakistanis did and many do till this day. But what we didn't know that the livery cab that he drove was a very beat up car. It had a lot of dents. It wasn't much to look at. The seats were torn. And yes, there were times when I was embarrassed to get in it. My father did this odd thing when, me and my siblings, we would drive with him down on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. And if he saw a hand go up, he would tell us to just get out of the car. Let me take this fare, make this $10, and I'll come back. And we would wait and wait and wait. An hour, 2 hours would go by. And then he would come back to pick us up. And we were embarrassed to get in that car because it was a beat up car. But over time, I came to cherish that car, that cab, no matter how worn down it was a symbol for everything that my father stood for. Hard work, dignity, humility. It wasn't just a car. It was a lesson for me. And my fondest memories from college and from law school are not from the campus. But as a livery cab driver, I was driving the cab myself in the evenings. My fondest memories from college and law school were as a livery cab driver, chit-chatting with two of my father's closest friends, both of them now deceased. There was Chacha Iqbal. We refer to him and the other cab drivers by the card numbers. So his card number was 034, or as we would mock him, we would say 034. And there was Chacha Ashraf, that was card number 9. And we used to wait for passengers together at JFK, passing time by sharing meals and talking about life, conspiracy theories about 9/11. Nothing fancy, just rice, some dal, some good chai that they packed in their little thermoses from back home, and some really long conversations. And those were the simplest, yet the most profound conversations that I've ever had. And these men who had very little or no formal education whatsoever treated me like their own son, and they taught me the most important lessons that I've ever learned. How to carry yourself when no one is looking. How to be generous when you have very little. And how to take pride in honest work. And that's what they did, really honest work. I remember another Desi uncle asking me not long after we arrived in Brooklyn, what do you want to grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up, son? And my father was listening, and I said, I want to be a limousine driver. Because I thought that if I could just drive something nicer than a beat up cab, I would make my father proud. But my father had a different vision, and he told me that he wanted me to have a job where I carried a briefcase to work every day. That was success to him, not because it was flashy, but because it represented stability, it represented respect, and most importantly, it represented a life with fewer hardships than his. And my father, unfortunately, couldn't be here today. He was supposed to be here, but he wanted to drive here. And then by the time he left, it was too late to make it here. But had I known that we weren't going to start until 9 p.m., I would have asked him to come. Years later, when I became a lawyer, and so I carried that briefcase that my father wanted me to carry, not just for myself, but for him. And for all the mothers, for all of the fathers, and all of the cab drivers in our community who gave everything to their children so that they could walk through the doors that were closed to them, doors that they could never reach. And now, in my role at the City Bar Association, I carry that same sense of responsibility with me. The responsibility to my roots, to my people who shaped me, and to the future that we are all hoping to build. And I want to speak tonight not just as a lawyer or as a professional, but as a member of this community, someone who is shaped by it, someone who's proud of it, and someone who is accountable to it. And Kashyap, you also asked me to say a few words to the young leaders in our community, those who are thinking about the impact that they want to have in this country and back home. So at the risk of being presumptuous, I want to offer 3 imperatives. Please take these not as instructions, but as guiding principles that I hope that you will think about when you lead our community and carry this community's values forward. So the first imperative is that our success means very little if we do not build it with others. And let me expand on that. And as we all know, and I look around the room and I see this myself, that we as a community, Pakistani Americans, we are pretty successful. We are doctors, we are lawyers, we are bankers, we are technologists, entrepreneurs. We're doing pretty well relative to most other Americans, most other diaspora communities in America. But let's not forget how we got here, right? We are the beneficiaries of a movement that we did not lead. The civil rights movement led by Black Americans tore down the legal barriers that kept people like us out. And it was their sacrifice that opened the gates to immigration reform in 1965 when Congress passed the Immigration Nationality Act, landmark legislation that eliminated the discriminatory national origins quota system, which gave preferential treatment to people from Northern and Western Europe. And the new law introduced a preference system based on family reunification and on skills. And this led to a major shift in the demographics of immigrants arriving in this country. And that's the very law that allowed us to be here. And I mentioned the work of Black Americans in promoting rights for everyone, not just for historical context. Their work is our moral inheritance. And we do not honor that inheritance by staying silent. We honor that inheritance by continuing the fight for others, just as others fought for us. So where is our community? Where are we when people like Kilmar Garcia, a Salvadorian father of 4 who fled gang violence, is deported to a country known for its dangers? Where is our community when Haitian Americans are shackled at the border? When Black Americans face violence and over-policing? When Jewish communities face anti-Semitism? And dare I say, when LGBTQ plus youth are being targeted by hostile legislation? Where are we? So we got to show up for the Garcias, for the Singhs, for the Cohens, because justice is only real when it crosses boundaries. If we only speak up when it's about us, about our issues, we're not fighting for justice. What we're doing is we're protecting privilege. And that's not who we are. And our community's professional standing gives us all the successes that we have. Those successes give us credibility, they give us platforms, and we must use them not for comfort, but for conscience. And that leads me to the second imperative. We must speak with moral clarity about injustice, even when it comes from within our own communities. So many of us are taught not to speak publicly, especially to outsiders, especially when we have diplomats and around us about the problems that we have in Pakistan. To do so is considered to be disloyal. But silence is not loyalty. And turning away from injustice does not protect anyone's dignity. It just erodes our own dignity. So let's be honest. The Ahmadiyya community in Pakistan faces institutionalized persecution, denied of the right to worship, to identify as Muslims. Shia Muslims are marginalized and suffer violence. Christians and Hindus are treated as second-class citizens. And today, Afghan refugees who sought safety in Pakistan and have lived there for generations are being detained and they are being deported. Many with no place to return, no protection, no due process. And beyond just the religious persecution, we must speak up about, and we must speak up against the larger forces that enable that type of injustice. Militarism, authoritarianism, the suppression of democratic values. We should speak up when unelected power centers dominate the political process. We should speak up when journalists are silenced. We should speak up when elections are manipulated and dissent is criminalized. That is not stability, that is decay. And here's the truth, another truth. Those of us in the diaspora community have a privilege that our brothers and sisters back home don't have. We don't face the risk of being disappeared for speaking up. We don't risk losing our livelihoods or our lives for criticizing brutality or injustice. But many people living in Pakistan do, and those fears are real. It is particularly because of that our voice from the safety and from the freedoms and from the comforts of our homes carries moral weight. And why, in my view, that voice must be used with care and with courage. So the Pakistan that we know today, unfortunately, is not the Pakistan that Quaid-e-Azam envisioned. And if you go back and you look at and read his 1947 lecture before the Constituent Assembly, this is a famous quote. He said, "You are free to go to your temples, you are free to go to your masjids, you may belong to any religion, to any caste or creed, and that has nothing to do with the business of the state." Now, that was not a suggestion, that was a foundational principle. And today, that principle is under threat. And not only by those who target minorities in Pakistan, but by systems of unchecked power that suffocate democratic life. So we in the diaspora have the privilege and the power to speak, not to shame, but to remind, to push Pakistan towards its highest ideals. Not from a place of condemnation, but from a place of care and a place of courage. And let me now speak about the last imperative. We must have, in my view, the moral discipline to challenge injustices within our own communities. If we want to be taken seriously when we speak up, we must first live out those values internally. So we must confront the anti-Blackness that persists in our own homes and in our own conversations, the misogyny that excuses domestic violence, the caste-based discrimination and ridicule that still lingers, certainly back home in Pakistan and here as well in the diaspora. And dare I say, the exclusion of LGBTQ plus communities in Pakistan from our community spaces. And look, these are not small matters. These are matters that test our moral integrity as a people. And we must meet these tests not with performative outrage or superiority, but with moral patience and restraint that defines real leadership. Now, we have all heard of the story of our Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the story of a woman from his time in Mecca, when a woman who threw rubbish at him every day after day. She insulted him, she disrespected him, she threw trash in his path. And day after day, he responded with patience and responded with dignity, without anger. And there was that one day when she fell ill. She wasn't there. He didn't celebrate that. He didn't retaliate. He went to see her to see if she was doing well. That act of mercy changed her. But more importantly, it models what real moral leadership looks like. It isn't reactive. It's steady. It's principled. It refuses to be dragged down by bitterness or by pride. We need more of that. Not just in how we respond to injustices, but in how we carry ourselves as a community. So let me close with this. As demonstrated by the folks sitting around the room, we as a community have come a long way. But this moment demands more than just professional success. It demands clarity, it demands courage, and it demands conscience. And let us be the generation that uses its voice consistently across communities and across borders. And let us not be afraid to speak the hard truths, even when they come from within. And let us lead not with ego, but with the humility and the integrity that our elders, that our chachas taught us. Thank you.